Welcome to the Recruitment Equation, the no-nonsense podcast where we get real about what it takes to succeed in talent acquisition. We're diving into the world of recruitment, the wins, the challenges, and everything in between. From innovative strategies to unfiltered conversations with industry leaders, we're here to give you the insights you need to elevate the way you attract and hire. This episode is supported by Beyond Talents and Develop Diverse, your partner for future-proof talent attraction. Let's get started. Welcome to this episode of the Recruitment Equation. I am so happy, Nicklas, that you and we're getting a chance to be talking about a very important topic.
Yeah.
A topic that cannot be ignored if you really want to do well with recruitment. Am I right?
You're right. Yeah.
We're going to talk about candidate experience.
Exactly.
My name is Byriel, and you are?
Nicklas Pyrdol.
Exactly. I have Develop Diverse, and you have the Beyond Talent. So I would say that we know a little bit, or have talked to a lot of people who know stuff about recruitment here, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I hope you agree.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
On that. So candidate experience is something that is being talked about a lot these days.
Yeah.
I see it a lot on LinkedIn. I hear a lot of people talk about it. But what is it really? What is the essence of candidate experience, Nicklas?
Well, experience in itself is such a fantastic term, right? Because it's subjective. So experiencing something is when an individual is exposed to something in the world and then has an opinion about it. It starts thoughts and feelings. And that's, for me, that's actually the essence of candidate experience. That is, what is it that a candidate goes through when they are a candidate in our processes? And that is actually even before they are a candidate, you know, in our employer branding, through the recruitment marketing process of, you know, seeing SoMe post about a job, you know, reading a job post, and then the entire process of being screened, being assessed, being interviewed. So it is being a candidate, what do they go through and how do they experience it? And often when we talk about it, it's in terms of, is it a good candidate experience? You know, do they find it meaningful? Do they enjoy it? Or do they find it bad? You know, do they find it tiresome and unfair? I think one of the reasons why we also talk a lot about it is because you cannot open up LinkedIn, you know, on any day without seeing a post from someone who has been in the recruitment process and has some sort of reaction and opinion about how that recruitment process has been handled.
Usually negative in my own experience,
yeah,
right? And people are being more vocal about it. I see a lot of posts. I don't know if it says something about my network specifically, but I do see a lot of posts saying that they or somebody they know never heard back.
Exactly.
Or got too many automated emails where they were first invited for an interview and then they were sent an email saying, sorry, that wasn't meant for you.
Exactly.
That was the ATS system doing it on its own.
Exactly.
I know you had a talk on this with Job Index on last Friday.
Yeah, exactly.
I just apologized, I couldn't make it. But I'm sure I know a lot of people made it there. But could you just, you did a talk on candidate experience. So could you recap the most important points from that talk?
Yeah. So some of the most important points were that, well, first of all, we actually have like scientific research on this. It's difficult to make scientific research on experience because that's a humanistic term, right? So, but we do have scientific research on things that candidates, they perceive as being a good experience. Some of that is like very common, like things we would, you know, common sense, feedback, for example, you know, getting that. That is something that candidate experience. But also, job relatedness is actually a funny factor. That's why, you know, if a candidate is being exposed to something that they know they are being judged on, but they don't find it to be related to the job. You know, if you were a tree, Peel, what tree would you be? And then you're there for a software developer job and are like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Or any other job, really.
Or any other job. Maybe actually only if you are an actor and you want to get a role in a TV commercial as a tree, maybe that question is actually related. It's also the opportunity for two-way communication.
I would do willow tree, by the way.
A willow tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because in Danish, that's pil. That's a funny
that's...
title like this.
Okay. So two-way communication is actually a thing. So the opportunity for two-way communication, that it's not only, it's not a black box for the candidate, what's happening in yours, and then when they are getting interviewed, it's only the other way around. Consistency across candidates. So the feeling that you and we are treated equally.
Yeah.
Of course, right?
Yeah.
Because if I have the feeling that you are getting an easier process than I am, then I don't find that.
But they will never know, will they?
Of course they will, because they talk about it, right? But for me, I said, I was once invited to Poland to a TA team, a global TA team for one of our, one of the big hotel chains. And they actually had a pretty nice concept around candidate experience, because they had the 3 C's: caring, competencies, and capacity. So as they said, if we don't make our hiring managers care about candidate experience, we can be the best in the world and we can have all the people in the world working with it. The candidates will get a bad experience because the hiring managers will not provide them with a good experience. But also, if we care, if we don't know what a good candidate experience looks like, if we don't have the right competencies, we still can't provide them with a good candidate experience. But then also the last thing, and that's often the most annoying, even if we care and we know what good looks like, if we don't have the capacity to create a good candidate experience, then they will still suffer, the candidates. So it was also one of the main points, that is, you need to make your organization care. You need to upskill everyone in what is a good candidate experience, but you also need to acknowledge the fact that you might or might not have the adequate capacity to provide a good candidate experience.
Yeah, the resources.
Exactly.
I think
yeah.
anyone that's been working with anyone working in a TA or a HR business partner or HR organization supporting on recruitment in any way or capacity, I haven't heard a lot of people saying that I don't know what to do with my time.
Exactly.
On the contrary, right? There's so much piling up. There's so much. They're really at capacity.
Yeah. Exactly.
So investing more resources, is that what you need to do?
Yeah. You need to understand that a lot of the things that go into a candidate experience is, of course, you can build it into the process, but then that takes time. And the majority of people today, again, one of the reasons why we see so many job or LinkedIn posts about a bad candidate experience is because the processes have been designed that way. And it takes time to redesign a process. So you need the capacity to go in, analyze the process, redesign it, and now teach your organization to do it the new way. All of that is going on while you have your 10 job openings or 100 job openings or 1,000 job openings, depending on how big you are.
Yeah.
You must also hear a lot, because I imagine that if you are a company that are interested in develop diverse, you are a bit more progressive, you are a bit more modern, and therefore, again, my assumption would be you are also more concerned about candidate experience than the majority of other companies. So is this a conversation that you, as Develop Diverse, have with your clients?
Yeah, definitely. And you're definitely right in your assumptions as well. I think where we are with our customers, they tend to both lack qualified candidates. The moment you are lacking qualified candidates, you know you need to treat them right.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you always do.
No.
But there is an acknowledgement. They realize that it can really hurt them if they don't treat them right in the candidate journey, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of work being done, and there are great tools out there as well. I can definitely, for anyone really interested in this, there's this, I think Start is a really good platform that people can use. But there's also an acknowledgement that the tool doesn't solve everything, right? You cannot just assume that your ATS can just fix it just because you put everything in process or in new AI tools, for that matter, that can send the automated messages. Because I don't know, in my own experience, candidate experience is really about being seen and being taken into consideration, feeling like that somebody has been interacting with if you have actually taken the time to apply, that you've been considered.
Yeah, exactly.
It's less about whether you're chosen. It's more about whether you've been considered.
Yeah.
And I think the fairness part is really important. So we also see that companies that have actually, so specifically for develop diverse and tools, once again, will never solve everything. But we have worked with customers that have implemented and changed the language that have also been going out and the messaging and all the material that goes up to the point where they have applied for the position, but also in the messaging that they're sending to the candidates afterwards, where they're seeing an increased, here they're using net promoter scores to sort of assess the candidate experience, and that have been increasing when you also are using more fair language in that way.
Exactly.
So it's small tweaks. It couldn't stand alone, of course, but all the small tweaks you can do to create that improved candidate experience is stuff that I see. But what I think you and I can talk a long time on why is this important. Companies know it's important. I think the ones you work with as well. No? Okay, that's interesting to dig into a little bit.
And we actually had this conversation right before we started, you and I, because some of the people, last Friday, they were provoked because they know that
when you did your talk, right?
They know that they don't have a good candidate experience. And what they protect behind is, well, you talk a lot about this, in terms of candidate experience, because you want people to, progress through the application process, progress through the recruitment process. But we don't want a lot of candidates. We only want the few right ones. But and that's because a lot of companies, their approach to recruitment is, we have a self-centered need of filling a position. So this is about us. This is about us finding the right person with the least amount of time spent doing it, and only considering that one person that we then hire. But we just need to consider the fact that for every one we hire, there are a lot of people that we do not hire. But if every time we have a recruitment process, we piss off all the people we do not choose, then what when we need them to apply again 1 year from now? They won't. What when we need them to be ambassadors for our brand so they convince other people to apply? But also, if some of the people that you wouldn't hire anyway, if they are deselecting themselves because they have a bad candidate experience, chances are that the right ones are also deselecting themselves because it's a bad candidate experience. Because if you have a good candidate experience, like per default, like that is your process, then everyone gets that good experience, and therefore you also increase the chances of the right ones going through. Yeah. I was provoked by someone who said, well, if they don't want to go through, our process, I talked a lot about, we ask candidates to, jump through 3 rings of fire, right?
Yeah.
Do all of these crazy stuff without actually paying them back with honesty, humility, feedback. And she was like, well, if they don't want to do all of this to get the job, well, they're not motivated enough. Where I was like, seriously? Because, there are a few brands in Denmark who are so at the top of everyone's list, so they can ask candidates for anything and they will do it. And the candidates, even if they are in a job, which most are, because we have low unemployment rates, they will still be grateful for having, they will be grateful for having been considered.
Yeah.
But that's 5 companies in Denmark?
Yeah. It's definitely not the majority.
All the rest, they're normal, mediocre, insignificant companies.
They're all great companies, but there's just I think I have another take on that. I think there's so many great companies, but your competitor also has an offering. And I think we can only assume, at least when I have a candidate I really would like to hire, and it happened unfortunately more than once, that they didn't choose me. Right? I always like to think that I do a good candidate experience, of course, but I'm not perfect either.
No.
But there are competitors out there. There are companies that are also great, like I'm great.
Yeah. Exactly.
and not mediocre at all, that will steal the good candidates. And if they do have a better candidate experience, the likelihood of them winning is just higher.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
it gets harder to get qualified applicants altogether.
Exactly. And one of the things I also talked a lot about is, we can actually come a long way with honesty and humility. If we just tell people, this is how the process is going to go. We have these steps.
Upfront, you mean?
Upfront.
Yeah.
This is how the process is going to be. We have these steps. We have, it will happen in these weeks. And even have those disclaimers being, we might be delayed because we have a big conference coming up. So our ambition is to do it in, with this time frame, but we might not be able to. And then when we fail, which we will, one of my key points was, and I also started my talk with, hi, I'm Nicklas, I'm an imperfect recruiter.
Yeah.
Because we all are.
Yeah.
I make mistakes. Like, I have 1,000 candidates every month that I need to go through besides doing this. So I will forget someone. I will be delayed once in a while. But then having the humility to go back to those candidates and say, you know what, I'm seriously sorry. Yeah. It happened because, this is what happened. Without throwing anyone under the bus, but this is what happened. I'm very sorry. Where are you in the process?
Yeah.
Would you still want to have the conversation? Would you still like to be considered? Just having that humility to then just say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Give a reason and then ask, where do we go from here?
Is there any instance where you don't have to care about candidate experience? Do you think are there any companies out there where it doesn't matter?
There are companies that are so like everyone wants to work there. Like people would give their right on. People would work for free for a year.
Just to be there.
Just to be there. Because they know if I get a position there, I'm set for life. I can get any job I want afterwards, or I can take any trajectory within the organization.
Yeah.
So there will be like a few organizations where they can treat people like shit.
And sometimes, I remember a company, I won't name names, but where it was proud, only 1% is supposed to get through.
Exactly.
So it's just one of the obstacles along the way.
Yeah. But there is a difference. So let's say, so the record for me is I once had a conversation with someone working in Nestlé.
Yeah.
They had a global position. It was remote, so anyone could apply. And they had one opening, so one person was to be hired, and they had 23,000 applicants.
Wow.
So the cool thing here is that a good candidate experience doesn't have to be. I also have a candidate once. She was hired at a C-level in like one of the biggest tech companies, and she went through 11 interviews.
Yeah.
She didn't think that was a bad experience because she knew that it was going to be like that. From interview to interview, she was informed, this has just happened. This is where we are. The next step in the process will be, this is what will happen, and this is the reason why we are doing it. So she was like, it took a long time, but they gave her the feeling that of course we're doing it like this.
Yeah.
And I know what will happen, and at any point in time I can withdraw. At any point in time I can ask them, what's going on. But again, it was transparent.
Yeah.
It was honest.
Yeah.
It had some reasoning behind it.
Yeah.
And it was not only based on because we want to have this process. It was also based on, we are doing this because we are also making sure that you make the right choice. It's also a big choice for you.
Yeah.
So, again, back to the foundation. I think actually we can do a lot with the process content, what the process contains.
Yeah.
If we communicate.
Okay, so that's a must.
Well in the process.
Because we're getting in approximately a little bit less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We have to get to the equation of this, right?
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
So we're getting there. So what I hear you is transparency is one building block of that. So let's pause that for a moment. Because I like equations. I like the structure and but also to get something concrete out of this conversation, right? Yeah. For anyone listening. So what else? What else do you need to do to create a good candidate experience? I'll be taking notes as well.
Reciprocity.
What does that word mean?
Reciprocity means that there is an equal relation between us.
Yeah.
So if I ask you to spend 5 hours on a case,
yeah.
I provide you feedback that is equivalent of you spending 5 hours of the case. If you do an easy apply with a generic resume, so you spend 3 seconds, then I give you feedback equivalent of a 3-second press on a button.
I like that.
So that reciprocity, and that also means that, and that's actually funny when we look at candidate experience, the earlier in the process, the less we are, the less we are obligated to do before the candidates are like, well, I had, that was also what I had expected from you.
Yeah.
But the longer we get in the process and the more we ask of the candidate, the more they expect from us.
Yeah.
So that reciprocity of just, I actually had a conversation once with one of our mutual friends, Michael, who was one in Statum. They had an experience where they wanted to dial up every rejected candidate and give them like in-person, real-time, like live individual feedback.
Every single candidate.
Every single candidate. And it was like, you know what? Maybe they don't need it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's actually so much that it's not even a good candidate experience.
Yeah.
But the thing we know is that a lot of candidates, and this is also funny, a lot of companies, they work with the fact that they say to the candidates, if you want feedback, so again, the opportunity for two-way communication.
Yeah.
If you want feedback, you can get it. And it's actually not that many candidates, especially early on in the process, that ask for it. Because, well, why should I? I just applied for a job as I applied for 10 other jobs. So why should I invest more? And again, the longer we get in the recruitment process, the more or the higher percentage says, I would actually like to get some sort of feedback.
But it makes sense, I think. To me, it makes sense that if I, as a candidate, invest a lot of time, then I also expect more back, and I expect more. I think I like that part a lot. And I think it's really interesting that you can actually give too much feedback as well.
Mm.
But if we just start with take point of departure in the candidate journey. You're transparent. You, as a company, you give everything up front.
Mm.
Then you are creating your job ad, or writing your job description and everything there. And that's sort of on the career side, of course, all of that is the candidate maybe meet, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe they know the brand, maybe they don't. There's something there that we're not going to touch too much upon right now. But in the recruitment communication that you're doing per job or per role, what do you need to do there? That's the first sort of impression that will make people choose whether to apply or not.
Yeah.
Right? Is there anything you can do already there to start the candidate experience, or is it just the transparency?
So transparency is one thing, but that's actually also a big thing because you communicate to the candidates what is the process, what's going to happen. And I even know someone who got a short guide.
Yeah.
This is how you can approach the interview. So this is a case interview. This is the case. Here are 5 good tips for you to succeed in an interview like this. This is a culture interview.
Yeah.
You will be asked, actually, some really cool companies are now working with, if they have, and they should have, a structured interview guide, so they know what they will ask, because they should ask all the candidates the same questions.
Yes.
They give the questions up front.
Okay.
Because why wouldn't they? Why should it be an exam where I don't know?
But isn't it just going to be ChatGPT answering then?
But I'm still to say it out loud. Yeah. So therefore, when it's semi-structured, if you ask me, Nicklas, what would be your go-to-market strategy for Develop Diverse? And then I have memorized the ChatGPT. Well, first of all, you would think I was a great or a great employee if I used ChatGPT if you hired me. So why shouldn't I be able to use it when I get hired? Sure. And the other thing is, when I then give you the ChatGPT answer, and then you ask me an elaborate question, a follow-up question, then you find out, what is the substance here? Yeah. Has he really understood it? Yeah. Or has he just memorized
We're going to talk about assessment another time, so let's not get too deep into that. I think it's still the candidate experience we're talking about here, right?
But it's just important, transparency is helping the candidate succeed by knowing who will I meet, what will I be asked, how do I perform.
Wonderful.
It's also and then reciprocity.
Yeah.
The last thing is actually what we call the choice-based feedback. A lot of people, they think that good feedback is me telling you what you should have done differently.
Yeah.
But that's actually arrogant, because if I tell you you should have designed your resume differently, you should have acted differently, then I assume that every single person out there that could ever hire you, they have the same opinion that I have. So instead of giving personalized rejections based on what you should do differently, we do choice-based rejections. We have chosen these people based on these criteria. So the person or the people that we have chosen for the next step, they have lived up to this, and this. Yeah. So again, we are very transparent. Yeah. We are providing the candidates with as much information as we can without falling into the trap that we are the judge of how they should go and interview, what clothes they should be wearing, or how they should present themselves, because we don't know. That's our subjective opinion.
Yeah.
So therefore, we can actually give pretty elaborate and pretty detailed feedback without it being too generic. But we just need to make it, again, transparent, choice-based feedback. Yeah. And then we can open up to, if you want, very individualized something, or maybe just my opinion about your resume, or my opinion about your interview style, or the clothes you wear. Then you can book yourself in here.
Yeah. And I think what I see when I open LinkedIn once in a while is the transparency is one thing, but if we get into the first selection process, we're not going to talk about how they select. That's not important for this conversation. But then you get an automated email most of the times. Most ATSs have this as a standard feature, either with knockout questions or questions that will deselect some people automatically. Yeah. And then you upload your CV, you do your application, straight away you get this rejection email potentially, depending on what systems the company uses. I don't see a lot of companies using automated AI or anything for that selection.
No.
Do you?
No.
Do you see that?
No.
Not yet, at least.
No.
Let's see. So it is, but usually you have to live up to some minimum criteria, or you have somebody manually or semi-manually going through CVs and potentially cover letter.
Yeah.
Does that represent majority of cases as you go through?
Exactly.
And then you get that email. Sorry, we didn't select you. What can companies do if that's not what you're going to do? I see a lot of a criticism about, that we shouldn't just send these automated emails. But what else can you do there for capacity thing as well?
Yeah, but again, you can scale up the choice-based rejection. Yeah. Because you can make the automated email or write the email saying, and of course you should be aligned with the job post, right? That, in the best of all worlds, we would interview everyone. But it's not a practical opportunity. It's not a practical possibility. We cannot interview 100 people.
Yeah.
So we have chosen 5 people to go to the next stage. Yeah. Those 5 people all lived up to these criteria. Then again, and this is where candidate experience is a bit funny. And this is where I'm going to not be every candidate's advocate and champion right now. Because that's why it's so important that a company, they make it as a possibility that you can get feedback or individualized feedback. But you cannot, as a candidate, a lot of candidates, they go out on LinkedIn and they are like, well, I got a rejection again. It was based on these criteria, but they should have just asked me because I could learn this, or I could, and you are right. But the funny thing is that a lot of those people, when they one day are hiring themselves, they go through the same motions. Because if you can pick and choose from 200 people, why should you take a random wildcard out here when you have people that might, where there are a bigger chance? And then we can go into bias and how can we even determine and so on. But again, the one of the most hardcore things about recruitment is that, we do need to deselect. It's like in elite sports.
You have to.
In the best of all worlds, we would have everyone in sports playing sports at the highest possible level for the longest period of time, and then we see who becomes world champions. But that's not how sport works. We can only select this many people for every team, for every club, and it's the same in recruitment. We do need to select.
Yeah.
We cannot have everyone going, all the way, and that is also where, again, as a candidate, I have a lot of these coaching sessions with people who want to move from where they are, and what I also tell them is that you need to find a way to scale up your, application process yourself. Again, in terms of reciprocity.
Yeah.
Because if you spend 5 hours applying for every job, you cannot expect every company to spend 5 hours reviewing 200 applicants.
Yeah.
So you need to find a way where you can scale up and not be emotional about every single job you apply for.
Yeah.
Because then it's impossible for companies out there to give you a good candidate experience.
Yeah, that's an interesting point I didn't expect for this conversation. I think it's really interesting. We're running out of time, Nicklas, as usual. I think for our conversations. I think what I hear right now is, it's really important to be transparent up front.
Mm.
Put that in the job ad and be sure to put the right qualifications so you can actually assess based on qualifications. Then it becomes pretty easy to assess people and be fair.
Yeah.
Which is also part of what you're saying here to ensure a good candidate experience.
Yeah.
Fairness plays a big part.
Yeah.
And it's really, when you actually can see, okay, maybe I didn't have the qualifications, then you feel more equally treated or
because
better
then
treated.
again, a lot of people, they can still argue that, well, I don't have all the qualifications, but you should move,
Yeah, but it's still fair. It's still fair. You didn't select me because I didn't have that. I knew it, but I took a chance on it, right?
Exactly.
Transparency, what is the process going to be like? Because then I'm not going to be feeling like, I wasted so much time or it was a waste of time. The word, I can't pronounce it, I think.
Reciprocity.
Wow, reciprocity. I will use that
Equal.
more. I like it.
Being
it's
equal.
my new favorite word. I think that's an important part of the equation, if I may say so, without asking you at all. But I think it is. I like that. The more you can expect what you're putting in there. But sometimes there is a misalignment, as you said here in the end as well, that some people will put in 5 hours even if we don't ask them to.
Exactly.
If we only ask for that CV and cover letter, there will be people that are invested. And it's a good thing, right? But how, then it becomes imbalanced because then you might expect more. And we won't find an answer to that today on balancing that, right?
No.
Using of course, the usual messages everyone uses in ATS, but maybe make them a little bit more personalized and role specific.
Yeah, more choice specific, more choice based. Be very transparent about how did you make your choice. The people that have qualified, the people that moved on that weren't you, how did we choose them? Not why did we deselect you, but how did we choose the people we chose?
I like it. Is there anything we're missing?
Yeah, and then humility. Yeah. In terms of, again, when we make mistakes, which we will in recruitment, say sorry. Give a reason, ask, what can I do for you now?
Yeah.
But also be humble in terms of when we have then done the best we can and we believe that we have provided every candidate with a good candidate experience, just accept the fact that there will still be people out there that will be emotional about getting a rejection, and that is actually okay.
Yeah.
They will be mad. They will do a LinkedIn post. They will, tell you off. And that is perfectly okay. Yeah.
It's not about being perfect. It's about trying.
Exactly.
Isn't it?
Exactly.
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nicklas. I've learned a lot from this session. And I hope everyone listening will as well.
Thank you as well, Pete.
Thank you.